Prior to this video, I just want to let you know that there are spoilers ahead for The Last Jedi. I was also unable to get the greatest clips from the movie since its recent release. This is actually Ben, and with the recent release of Star Wars The Last Jedi, the latest film in the Star Wars franchise, there's been quite a battle recently on whether or not it is a good Star Wars film. The reaction of fans is very two-sided, with one side hating the film with the other side enjoying it. It may seem like it's just a matter of opinion like many other films, but Star Wars The Last Jedi currently has a 51% audience-like rating on Rotten Tomatoes. This can be compared to Star Wars Attack of the Clones' audience-like rating at 57%. Yeah, while the critic review is quite different, the audience is clearly mixed on Star Wars The Last Jedi, with some going as far as saying it should be removed from Star Wars canon. There is currently a petition with 75,000 people who have signed it to get this removed from Star Wars canon. Now, I have seen the film a couple of times as well as its predecessors, and personally, I believe Star Wars The Last Jedi was a good Star Wars film and holds up to the other films, and today I will be addressing some of the issues in that film. One big complaint of the film was, would Luke Skywalker go into exile after the rise of the First Order and the betrayal of Ben Solo? This complaint was even brought up by Mark Hamill himself in an interview.
I said to Ryan, Jedis don't give up. I mean, even if he had a problem, he would maybe take a year to try and regroup. But if he made a mistake, he would try and right that wrong. So right there, we had a fundamental difference. But it's not my story anymore.
In short response, yes, he would go into exile. Or at least I think so. Let's first look at the circumstances Luke is in prior to the attempt on Ben Solo's life. He is the last Jedi in the universe. By the end of Return of the Jedi Council had been extinct for nearly 23 years. And by Force Awakens, the Jedi had been extinct for 53 years. This puts a lot of pressure on Luke. He even mentions in Last Jedi to Rey that she just expects him to come in with a laser sword and save the day. I mean, when your whole plan to fight evil empires is centered around one guy, that guy is probably going to be under a lot of stress. Luke was able to defeat and take down the Galactic Empire, so now he's looked at as the legendary Last Jedi that can solve the universe's problems. This pressure is putting stress on that there is an expectation for him as a Jedi to always save the day. Under this pressure, as seen as the universe's problem solver, he begins to train the next generation of Jedi, until he takes the attempt on Ben Solo's life after seeing Ben's dark future, which causes Ben to turn to the dark side and take the other students with him. This is a heavy blow to Luke. He's the last Jedi, everyone's hope, and his wrongdoing and failure has caused the starting point of the next galactic terror and struggle. A Jedi's worst fear is to fail, and we've seen this before. In Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, near the end of the film, Yoda faces off against Darth Sidious. Yoda is unable to defeat Sidious and retreats through a pipe and links up with Senator Organa. With the Senator, Yoda proclaims,
"Into exile I must go. Failed I have."
This wasn't exile out of fear of the clones, but rather an exile of shame. Yoda was unable to defeat the man who overthrew the Republic and destroyed the Jedi Order right under his nose. Yoda then goes into exile and retreats to Dagobah for the remainder of his life. So when Mark Hamill says,
Jedis don't give up,
they actually do. What I'm getting at here is Luke's reaction to failure mixed with the pressure of being seen as the last hope makes his exile actually very believable. Okay, now let's talk about the attempt on Ben Solo's life. Would Luke Skywalker try and kill his own nephew for the betterment of the universe? Well, no, not exactly. But I keep using the word attempt, but Luke never attempted anything. Luke stood over Ben, sensed darkness, and in a moment of doubt ignited his lightsaber. Ben wakes up, he sees Luke standing there, and he strikes Luke. Luke never attempted to stab, slash, or gut his nephew in his lapse of judgment. Luke ignited his saber, and after the saber was lit, Luke realized what he was doing and began to cool off. But as Luke was cooling down, Ben woke up to see Luke looming over him. But would Luke even ignite his lightsaber? Well, yes. Luke is actually very emotional when it comes to family and death. In Star Wars A New Hope, after Darth Vader defeats Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke, then in emotional rage, continuously shoots stormtroopers even when Han Solo informs him that they have to leave. In Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Luke meets the Emperor. The Emperor taunts him as he has Luke's saber on his armrest next to him. The Emperor tells Luke to strike him down in anger, and Luke replies,
No.
After taunting about how Luke's friends will die in the current battle, Luke snaps and force grabs the saber, swinging until Darth Vader counters his swing, while the Emperor is laughing in joy. In the same fight in Return of the Jedi, Luke hides under the Emperor's throne floor in the dark. Vader seeks him out. Vader begins to sense Luke's thoughts and begins threatening his sister, Leia. Luke's connection with Leia is very strong, and this statement causes Luke to come out of the shadows and strike Vader with force. Luke's saber attacks being less strategic and more blind and brutal, as he throws his saber around and slams his saber repeatedly on Darth Vader's saber until Luke chops off Darth Vader's hand. This even pleases the Emperor, with him saying,
Good. Your hate has made you powerful.
Luke then gets a hold of himself and cools off, responding that he will not kill Vader and lets the Emperor force lightning him rather than strike down his father in hate. So Luke has shown moments of emotional doubts and lapses, so it's not a stretch that Luke, a man who's faced evil before and is now regarded as a beacon of hope to end all darkness, encounters a boy with a dark future ahead. With the pressure of being the one to save the galaxy mixed with his emotional connection of the dark and the rise of evil, he would for at least a few seconds think about slaying Ben Solo. Again, Luke cooled off and didn't attempt anything on Ben, but the damage was already done once Ben woke up and saw him looking over him with an ignited lightsaber. Supreme Leader Snoke was the big bad guy everyone wanted him to be, but fell flat when Kylo Ren, his apprentice, ignited Anakin's lightsaber through Snoke, killing him by chopping him in half. I will first address the way Snoke died. Was it fitting? While being cut in half isn't a new topic for Star Wars, the discussion shouldn't be how he died, but more who killed him. Kylo Ren is Snoke's apprentice, and killing him with his grandfather's lightsaber breaks Kylo from the norm. It shows Kylo isn't a lapdog that defends the First Order until the ends of the galaxy, but rather a deeper character that wants something more. He isn't blind and isn't just the villain in the mask. Killing Snoke and defying the First Order breaks Kylo from his bounds. It didn't matter how Snoke died as long as Kylo was the one to kill him, breaking Kylo out of the Darth Vader trope many have put him in. Secondly, many wanted more information about Snoke. Who is he? How did he come into power? And is he a Sith or what? Okay, now put these questions next to the Emperor in the original trilogy, taking away the backstory of the prequels. None of these questions are actually answered for the Emperor, and Snoke is actually a mirror of the Emperor. Both of them first appear in a hologram form to their apprentices, and tell them something important about their bloodline. The way the hologram shows them bigger and the way that people kneel to them, you can tell that they are the ones in charge. We then see them in the next movie, their second appearance. They face the protagonist and try to get them to turn to the dark side. Once this fails, they torture the hero for a bit until their apprentice abruptly betrays them. However, people say we care more about Snoke than the Emperor because we now have a set universe. Which is correct, but we also have the story between the lines, the story that requires research. On the Star Wars Wikipedia page for Snoke, it exclaims, Snoke was a humanoid alien who was the leader of the Attendants, a retinue composed of mute alien navigators who originated from the unknown regions. At some unspecified point in his life, Snoke acquired a black obsidian stone from the catacombs and mines from beneath the castle of Sith Lord Darth Vader on the planet of Mustafar. He affixed the stone to a golden ring he wore, which was engraved with glyphs used by the 4 stages of Dwarti, a Eventually, Snoke witnessed the rise and eventual fall of the Galactic Empire. What was left of the Galactic Empire fled to the unknown regions and took the shape of what eventually became the First Order. Although most of the Imperial officers would have likely perished while crossing this uncharted realm, the ancient hyperspace trails blazed by Snoke's retinue helped them stay there and organize themselves. Although he was a powerful practitioner of the dark side of the Force, Snoke was not affiliated with the Sith, which became extinct as a result of the deaths of Darth Sidious and Vader at the Death Star 2, thanks to the efforts of the Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. With the complaint that Star Wars The Force Awakens was way too similar to Star Wars The New Hope, many believed that Star Wars The Last Jedi would mirror Empire Strikes Back, with a lot of fans okay with the comfort familiarity brings, but they were disappointed when The Last Jedi was something different. But it actually does mirror Empire Strikes Back in its own way, but also becomes its own. The similarities. We have the rebellion on the run as they are hunted and under attack. They have to use transports to avoid destruction. We have the lead Jedi with their companion getting Jedi training from an old Jedi Master with the help of the Ghost. We have the swashbuckling characters off on another adventure on a lush, never-before-seen place where they meet their next hope, but turns out they betray them. And lastly, we have a face-off between family. But when Kylo ignites his saber and kills Snoke, that is the moment The Last Jedi breaks away from these tropes it has been locked into. Many went into the movie with an expectation for it to follow a certain path, to answer all the questions, but this is an Empire. Though it may have similarities to it, it's not. This isn't New Hope, this isn't Empire Strikes Back, and this isn't Return of the Jedi. These aren't the original trilogy, they're their own trilogy, their own story and their own characters that are not bound by past movies. The death of Luke Skywalker has made many mad since it wasn't the death they wanted for the main hero, but the thing that makes me mad is the whole use of the word death. Luke, like many other Jedi, didn't simply just die. He became one with the Force. Many others have done this throughout the films. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda informs Obi-Wan that through the Force he can contact Qui-Gon Jinn.
An old friend has learned the path to immortality. One who has returned from the netherworld of the Force. Your old master.
Qui-Gon.
In New Hope, Obi-Wan becomes one with the Force after Vader strikes him down, and lastly, Yoda. Yoda is seen in Return of the Jedi. He is just old. There's no explanation on why Yoda is dying, he's just dying, and he fades away and becomes one with the Force. So Luke's death wasn't really a death at all, but the moment Luke has finally faced his failure, admitted his failure, and now has gained peace. Rey quotes to Leia at the end of the film that she felt Luke's passing, but it was peaceful and had purpose. Once a Jedi has fulfilled all their duties in living form, they move on to the next to give wisdom when needed. Obi-Wan informed Luke to use the Force, travel to Dagobah's system, and talk to him about his father. Yoda came back in The Last Jedi to give wisdom to Luke about the Jedi Order and about the future of Rey and the Jedi. So maybe Yoda didn't just randomly die, he fulfilled his last deed. He trained a new Jedi, passed on his wisdom, and told Luke about Leia. So when Luke became one with the Force, it was because he fulfilled his purpose. He trained the next Jedi, he sparked hope, he faced his failure, and he resolved conflict. They are nobody. Or are they? I want you to really think about the scene where Kylo makes Rey admit her parents' origin. He just told Rey his plan to let the past die and start anew, but Rey doesn't want to. She's hesitant. Kylo informs her that she is still holding on to the past. So what better way to make her let go of her past than forcing her to admit her fear and using it? Not her knowledge, her fear. See, Kylo is smart. He was able to best the Supreme Leader without his knowledge. Kylo says, "You've always known." In a moment of vulnerability, Rey admits her fear of her parents. Kylo then plays it as he knew all along and tries to force her to let go of the resistance and create something new with him. I also want you to take a look at Star Wars A New Hope. Obi-Wan says,
"A young Jedi named Darth Vader, who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil, helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. He betrayed and murdered your father."
and we all believe this, and it turned out to be one of the biggest twists in cinematic history. So I think with this one, we need to be a little bit skeptical on what the truth is and what preference is. Why won't anyone tell Poe the plan? I agree, this was kind of jarring at first when I realized if someone told Poe the plan, he wouldn't have sent Finn and Rose, and thus the second part of the movie would just vanish. But then I looked a little harder. I read between the lines. Once Vice Admiral Holdo becomes in charge, Poe approaches her for a plan. She doesn't tell him anything, but just brushes him off. But why? Well, firstly, Holdo has become in charge just 5 minutes ago. She needs time to consult her officers and devise a plan that will save the most lives. Second, the last thing Leia did before her coma was demote Poe for risking lives. Holdo even said, "Flyboys like you are impulsive, dangerous." She doesn't trust Poe, she doesn't want him causing any risks, so for no one to freak out, she just wants everyone working as normal and to trust command. The second time Poe asks about the plan, he actually gets an answer, and as a skilled pilot, he knew the information that they wouldn't track the smaller ships, but it all comes down to preference. He looked at it as abandoning ship and sending the crew off to die. So Poe understood the plan, he just looked over why they were doing it. And his behavior was so radical that no one could explain it to him. Leia would have certainly died from space, right? Because, well, space is space, right? But what about the Force? She is a Skywalker, she is Force sensitive, but would she be able to use the Force before the explosion? The first time I saw this scene, well, I found it weird. The Mary Poppins float scene felt off, and 2 audience members in the theater actually laughed when viewing the scene. I watched it for a second time, however, and I noticed something. Ryan established in the film when 2 characters are connected by the Force, both are shown. The background is drowned out, and the characters are the main focus. The characters cut back and forth. This is used a lot with the Force connection scenes between Rey and Kylo, but this is also shown when Kylo is piloting his TIE fighter and Leia is in the ship's command center. So Leia sensed the fact that Kylo was piloting the TIE fighter and was closing in, so she was already connected with the Force before the explosion. But could she Force protect herself in time, in space, or would she have been dead already? Well, the thing I noticed was after her connection with Kylo, she senses the incoming missiles. There is around 3 to 4 seconds before the explosions where Leia sucks in her breath and prepares for the upcoming explosion. This quick Force meditation made Leia prepare herself for the journey in space and protect her body. Once she became cognitive, she Force pulled herself to the ship. This second time I saw this, it actually made me appreciate the scene a lot more. The small 3 to 4 seconds she gets ready for the main explosions makes a lot of sense. But does the Force work like that?
That's not how the Force works.
Well, we actually don't know. We haven't seen it done in any previous films, but we also haven't seen it not done in any previous films. The Force is very powerful, and I don't think this is too far out. I mean, Darth Plagueis could keep people from death, so more than likely Leia has some sort of the same amount of power, but just untouched and untrained till dire moments arise. These are my answers to some of the major issues regarding the film. I understand some of the minor details were not addressed. Nonetheless, I feel like I covered most of them. If you're thinking about going to The Last Jedi, I recommend going and watching it and making your mind up for yourself. I feel bad for Star Wars since its fan base is so passionate, so every film that gets released gets major hype and, well, majorly scrutinized as fans dissect the film, finding every problem. Well, every movie has small plot holes, unrealistic scenes, and acting problems, but these go unnoticed or less reacted to since it's not a well-loved series. But I think we can all agree it's that passion about Star Wars that makes the movies and fan base so special. The love, the costumes, the community.
It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
I think that whether you like The Last Jedi or not, we can all agree that we love Star Wars and the community that surrounds it. And I think that's what matters the most. So, may the Force be with you.